What's up, everybody? It's your boy Josh Showtime. It's your Showtime Fight Forum. My man's Josh Valles, and we're here to talk all things fights. Today's gonna be another boxing edition, and we have to do a recap of George Kambosos versus Vasily Lomachenko for what is it? It's not the WBA. It's WBC.
Oh, it was IBF lightweight.
IBF. I'm sorry, IBF lightweight championship. And I didn't realize that IBF required a 10 pound rehydration clause. I didn't know that was always like with it. That's kind of stupid, but
There's always something with boxing, so I mean, it is what it is.
But we saw a very exciting fight like that. I was kind of worried about that. I didn't actually think it was going to be as exciting as it was. Like, it was some good bits. Like, it wasn't boring at all. Vasily Lomachenko was extremely active. And if you're watching this video, you already know what happened. It was a TKO stoppage by ref and also by throwing in the towel as well. 11th round TKO. And it was just a phenomenal performance by Lomachenko. Tell me what you... Also, let me brag real quick. Your boy was right. Your boy was right. I said it was going to be a one-way show, and I said it was going to be by stoppage. We saw no Mas Lomachenko, and I called it, so I got to brag a little bit about it. But what did you think of the fight, and also Lomachenko?
Absolutely. You did call it. That was definitely on last episode. What I thought about the fight overall, you had a great analysis right there. Action-packed fight, even though it was obviously one-sided.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of action. It wasn't a boring fight to watch. Got to give it up to George Kambosos. Regardless of what you think he is as a fighter, he does come correct every single fight. He does put his best. Yeah, he's a tough fighter, tough as nails. Put his best foot forward. I think we just got what we call vintage. We got vintage Lomachenko here. We got a Lomachenko who didn't want to leave it up to the scorecards anymore, right? Because we saw what happened with Devin Haney. We've seen him lose other close fights with T.O. when it came to the decision, right? So he came back being as fiery as ever. We know we talk about age and all of this, but we're starting to see with a lot of fighters that this mid-30 age range is still an elite place for fighters nowadays. Certain fighters, right? And Lomachenko is definitely one of those certain fighters. Bud is another one of those fighters. We saw Pacquiao do it. Canelo, we talked last episode, is approaching that age, and we don't think he's slowing down really anytime too soon. Another 3 years from Canelo, we see some exciting fights. So with Lomachenko, this was just vintage Lomachenko that we are accustomed to seeing, that made him the superstar that he is. Like you said, no Lomachenko. So we got this time a good body shot to Kambosos here. Threw in the towel, swarmed on him, closed the show. Great to see that. Love to see the fact that this was Lomachenko closing the show, not giving it to the the judges to make a decision. And here it is, Lomachenko right back in the mix. He's a titleist now, and he has a lot of different options. So excited to have Lomachenko back in the fold here if he continues to fight like this, which in reality he has. Lomachenko has been very good his last few fights. It's just that he was on the wrong end of some decisions.
Yeah, and I mean, big part of it was him starting so slow. Like, both had Devin Haney and also Teo, which I also called on the last episode, which is he's a notoriously slow starter, just like Terrence Crawford and things like that, where they let rounds go so they can analyze their opponent and they can adjust in fight and get their reads. Now, one thing Terrence Crawford did when he fought Errol was that he only gave up one round. He said, all right, because normally Terrence Crawford takes about 3 to 4, then he'll start, being aggressive. First round, he was like, all right, I figure what Errol's doing. Just completely destroyed him. This fight, he had no respect from George Kambosos. From what I felt from bell to bell, he was like, brother, you can't hurt me. You have 15 knockouts out of like 30 fights. You're not going to hurt me, and you're barely going to hit me. And I know for a fact I can hit you because you're there to be had. And he just absolutely abused him like the entire fight. Like, it was it was so like it's bad when you sit here and you're encouraging somebody's toughness by saying, "Damn, that man tough. Like he's taking a lot of punches and he's not going down." And that's what I felt the entire fight. Like it was like, oh, he's got a good couple body shots there. I felt like there was one time where he hit Lomachenko in the body, and I felt like Lomachenko really didn't like that. But outside of that, man, I felt like the only reason why Lomachenko's face was really marked up is because I felt like they headbutted a few times. Because they definitely collided a bunch during the fight. Because, once again, respects to George, he didn't back down. Like, he was 10 toes down. He was like, hey, brother, like, if you want to go, we can go. And at one point, he was trying to move forward. But George Kambosos fighting backwards was not a good game plan. And at the end of the day, that's what happens when you don't respect a person's power. You could be on your front foot. You can constantly attack. And we already know he called himself Matrix for a reason. He will find different angles, and he will pick you apart. And it was just it's so beautiful to watch Lomachenko fight when he fights like that. Like, and here's the thing. People want to sit here and say, like, we'll talk about this as far as future. They want to see him versus Tank. And the thing is, you won't get this version fighting Tank ever. It's never going to happen because he knows what's coming back to him. Like, he can't fight like that. You fight like that versus Tank, Tank will catch you eventually. When you're fighting the George Kambosos, you can fight like that because something's coming back, but it ain't going to have that kind of sting. You ain't going to put me to sleep. Simple and plain. So, that was my take for the fight. Excellent fight. Super happy about it. Lomachenko showed that he's 36, but he is still young, and it does not matter. You can put him in there with the elite, and he can still compete. Haha, rhymed. But, this kind of made me feel, though, out of this whole situation was like, damn. I really would love him to fight at 126 one more time and fight Inoue.
Well, who says they can't fight each other at a catch weight, right? So anything's on the table as far as that fantasy matchup, which I wouldn't even really call fantasy. It could very well likely happen, right? Depending on, again, if they were as a catch weight. But I can't see Lomachenko coming down.
That's what I'm saying.
I know that would be a sick fight, though. I give you credit on that one.
Saudi money. If you look, Saudi can do it. Hey.
They're making everything happen now, right? So who knows? I think overall, to your point, Lomachenko has shown that he's right there still. He can still do this. I do think that a fight with Gervonta Davis is on the table, but again, to your point, I don't see this being the same Lomachenko that we see in that fight. Definitely more of a Matrix type of fighter there. But it was nice to see the bully come out of Lomachenko after some fights that he felt like he should have won, felt like he didn't get the respect he deserved because they were looking to promote the next star, I'm sure. Yeah. But now this was like, hey, I'm not leaving it up to anybody. I'm leaving it up to myself. Bet on myself is what they call it. And here he is, like I said, right back into the mix as a titleist, and I'm excited to see what's next for him.
And this is the version that we really should have seen versus Devin Haney. Teofimo Lopez, I completely understood why he fought the way he did. He obviously still should have kicked it up a gear a couple rounds sooner, but I understood why he fought that way. At the end of the day, Lopez had the power that you cannot ignore at that weight class. At 140, it's a different version. That power personally has not translated. We haven't seen it translate. He hasn't really gotten any finishes, nothing that's really impressive. He looks decent in spurts, and depending on who he fights, depending on how good he looks. But at 135, his power was real. He was knocking everybody out. So he had to respect that. I understood that game plan. That is what he needed versus Haney. He was aggressive too late. He let the taller, bigger fighter fight on the outside, fight at his range, and pick him apart via the body. And yes, some people still say he won. I'm not saying that it was obvious that Haney won. It was a close fight. But how you alleviate close fights, or how you alleviate losing a close fight? Stop giving up easy rounds in the beginning. Simple and plain. Be more aggressive. Knock your guy out. No, finish, obviously. That's leading into my point. You're more aggressive, then who's to say that you couldn't get that finish? Especially with the weight-drained Devin Haney. Like, yes, they call him a weight bully, but he's struggling to make 140 now. I can only imagine how bad it was last year making 135. So that was a weight drain, even though he got all that weight back, this, that, and third. For a person that has cut weight, if you cut too much weight, 1 day to recover is really not enough. That's just a fact. You can say what you want. 1 day is only so much. And I know IVs help, and I don't think that's legal. I'm not sure about boxing. I know in UFC it's not legal anymore, but maybe hydration helps and stuff like that. But I just know the weight draining. I mean, that was a weight drain. Devin Haney, he very well could have been had if he was more aggressive in that fight. So I was happy to see that now. Now, before we go into what's next for Lomachenko, because I do want to talk about that, let's talk about George Kambosos. All right. I brought this up last show. We got to talk about it now. And I said this is George Kambosos' chance to prove Teofimo Lopez's victory was not a fluke. That was this fight. Yes, he had victories before, but it's against guys that we do not care about. That's just a fact. Not to say these guys are not good. I'm not trying to disrespect him in that route. He beat some good boxers. Overall, the bigger scheme of things, though, is the difference between beating your last opponent and beating Teofimo Lopez. We all believed it was a fluke. Well, most of us believed it was flukish. We believed that Teofimo was hurt and the medical reports was true, this, that, and the third, and that if they fought again, Teofimo would lose. You always hold strong saying that you were just better. All right, y'all not fighting again. There's only one way to prove this now, having a good reign. This fight, the Devin Haney fight, has pretty much told me personally, and you can get mad at me, I don't care, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you can get mad at me yourself, George Kambosos. It was fluke. I'm sorry to say it, but it was fluke. You were the better man that night, but there were circumstances that helped you get better. And I'm gonna do a small little reference point, and this might not get this to people, only people who watch Rocket Power. Have you seen Rocket Power?
Of course.
Do you remember the Super McVarial McTwist 900?
Yes.
All right. Now, for people who may not know, you might be too young, is when Auto Rocket created a special move, and he actually, they said it was physically impossible. They said they could not do it, but he ended up doing it somehow, and he thought he could just do it again. He was like, "Oh yeah, I could do this. This is a made up move. They said it was impossible. I made the possible happen." Only reason why that happened was because some unforeseen circumstances where Sam, the little white boy, threw a golf ball and it hit his board that somehow made him be able to gravitate and do flips, and he actually accomplished it. It didn't work the second time. He almost broke his neck. He almost died. This is basically what I'm saying happened to George Kambosos. It was a variation, a very bad variant that happened, and Teofimo Lopez got hurt, and he unfortunately capitalized on him, and he became champion. And now he's exposed as a above average boxer.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree that this fight right here was an opportunity for George Kambosos to let the world know that I'm an above par fighter. I'm an above average fighter. Because to your point, we did all think that Teofimo's fight, we wouldn't really call it a fluke. I didn't want to call it a fluke because it was like a really good fight back and forth, right? Yeah. But to lose back-to-back to Devin Haney in the fashion that he did, I mean, those were shutouts. Those weren't competitive fights.
In your home country.
In his home country. Then he beats a fighter in Maxie Hughes who does have some solid wins on his record, but then again, not really, and also has 7 losses. So regardless if he was in the top 10 rankings as far as when George Kambosos had fought him in the IBO rankings, it still wasn't really that great of a quality win. And you go to fight Lomachenko once again for the 3rd time in a row in your country, and you essentially put up another shutout and lose. So for me, I think this fight, unfortunately, for George Kambosos just proved that you are going to be a good name in the sport of boxing that young up-and-coming fighters can put on their resume, that will stand out, that will give them a tough fight. Kind of like a Paulie Malignaggi. George Kambosos put himself in the place of Paulie Malignaggi.
And he's not even as good as he's not even as good as Paulie.
So far, he hasn't shown it, right?
Yeah.
So as far as that is concerned, I would just say they correlate in the same of really good name, but like you know that you can beat this fighter.
Yes, and you should beat this fighter.
You should beat this fighter, and people will tune in because they do recognize the name. And like I said, I'm not going to take credit away from George Kambosos. The guy really is a warrior. So if you are going to fight George Kambosos, this is a fight for you. Yeah, be ready to fight because he's definitely going to bring it. If you bring it to him, more than likely you'll have the edge, but he's going to bring it every fight. He's not going to lay an egg. So
Yep.
I'm excited. I'll definitely tune in to some George Kambosos fights in the future. Honestly, I think part of it has to do with the fact that he will be fighting some up-and-coming fighters I want to watch anyways. So, good luck to him in his career, but this fight here just showed that there are levels in this boxing world, and his level is just mediocre. He's just going to be a good, mediocre fighter that had a great fight against Teofimo, that they'll make a ESPN 30 for 30 short out of it, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I agree. And once again, we're here to tell the truth, and we're not here to be soft glove with it. And this is like so much respect because we know what it takes, and we understand that it takes balls to be a boxer. And at the end of the day, to be at high level and to be able to get these W's is not easy. So once again, shout out to him, and honestly having such a great career so far. But we have to tell the truth, and that is when it comes to these elite fighters, he's not that. He's not. He's skilled but flawed, very flawed, and he's limited. Unfortunately, we've already seen it. So it is what it is. Good luck to his next fight and whatever he decides to do. Wish him nothing but the best for him and his family, and hope he stays healthy and all that good stuff. But also last note when it comes to Kambosos, no more fights in Australia. You need to fight in America now. You done lost the right to fight in your home country. I'm sorry, you 0-3 in the big fights in your home country. I don't want to see you in Australia no more. You don't deserve it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Take your butt away game. I've never seen a team that has a losing record make it to the playoffs and then also have a game, a home game. That don't make sense. So make sure you go to wherever if it's. They don't even make the playoffs. That's my point. That's literally my point. You make it.
Coming from the guy who has a team in the AFC or NFC South, which is notorious for making the playoffs with a losing record.
First of all, before we even do this football talk, for a long period of time, our division was actually the toughest division in NFL for a long period of time. From 2011 to 2017, our division was by far the toughest. Come on, we had Drew Brees, Cam Newton, and Matt Ryan all in the same division. Let's not disrespect us. Let's move on. Anyways, so back to what I was saying. If I was really interrupted, you're also a Giants fan. Y'all have the worst. Do we really got to do this, brother? Do I have to break down how y'all division has been trash, and y'all have had trash quarterbacks in y'all division for years now, decades maybe?
2 Super Bowls in 15 years.
Who got? Oh, that's from one team.
I'm a Giants fan. You're calling out my Giants fan. I was just saying, we don't make the playoffs with a losing record like the NFC South. That's all I'm saying. When we made the playoffs, hold on. We might have been 8-8, but that's not a losing record. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay, sure, whatever. Anyways, keep on riding that coattail. Listen. We didn't have facial hair when y'all won a Super Bowl, so leave it alone.
I had a mustache.
Okay, I didn't. I didn't have nothing. But let's go back into Vasily Lomachenko. All right, so now we talked about what was next for George Kambosos. What is next for Lomachenko? I know what we want to. Actually, no. Let's go ahead and say first what we want to see and what we expect.
Sure. Well, what we would want to see is a unification bout for Lomachenko. There's a lot of titleists at his weight class right now. That would be a very hot fight, as we know. We're talking about Shakur Stevenson. We're talking about Gervonta Tank Davis. So we got some really good fights there. I would like to see a unification fight between one of the champions. I think right now we're just at a point in boxing where it's just too obvious who's ducking, who's not.
It's too much, man.
Yeah, there's too much going on right now where we can understand, okay, you clearly just don't want to fight this person. That's why this is not working out. So what I would like to see is a unification fight with Lomachenko and one of the current champions, like I said, Tank or Shakur. What will actually happen is Lomachenko will more than likely just take a mandatory, whoever that may be, and go the IBF route since he's now an IBF holder. But
I think he said that his goal is to be a division undisputed. So he definitely wants to try. He has to want to beat somebody with a title for him to accomplish that, and he's 36.
Yeah. So he's gonna, like I said, he's gonna have to fight one of these top guys. Like to your point, but I think somehow, some way, he's gonna finesse his way out. I don't know if Loma wants to fight either Tank or Shakur. I don't think he wants to take that risk. I think that that's a legacy fight for him in the sense of maybe one of his last hoorah fights. I think he thinks there's maybe 3 more good ones, and he'll probably save a Shakur or a Tank for the last, 3 good fights. I don't think he takes that fight right away. If he does, kudos to Bob Arum and kudos to Lomachenko, because I know Shakur wants that fight.
Okay. Cool. Hey, I think that, obviously what I want Tank. That's the fight that I think makes a lot of sense. I think it's right now that needs to happen. Lomachenko, when you're 36, man, like, here's the thing. When you're past your prime, it comes at you fast. It's not something that necessarily gradually happens. It's not like, 5 fights into it, you start to see a decline. No, a lot of times when people, like, flame out and they're past their prime, you find out that day. And it's very bad. So, like, we might have found out Errol Spence that night was past his prime. It could be wrong. It could be right. We don't know. We have to see his next fight to really gauge and say, he's not the same anymore. So we don't know when Lomachenko's really going to hit that peak. So right now is the time where it's like, okay, take the biggest fights, especially with titles that you can. Well, I think Tank needs this fight more than Lomachenko does personally. Tank needs a fight of an established elite fighter. He has yet to have that. No fighter at 135 he's fought is elite and established, where we can't say, and some people could say, people could say something about Lomachenko's age. Sure. But after this performance, you're not going to really hear that from me personally. You ain't going to really hear that from too many people. They're going to sit here and say, look at his last fight. And when he fought Devin Haney, what did he do to Devin Haney? Split decision. So it's not like Lomachenko is, like, apparently washed, like, in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. So I just think that right then and there, it sets up both fighters. Both of them need the fight. Both of them are legacy fights, both money fights. So it helps out Lomachenko in so many different ways. I think, personally, if Lomachenko's avoiding anybody, it's Shakur Stevenson. I think that's the fight where Lomachenko doesn't care for. He doesn't really need or want. I feel like if that was like I would rather wait until I have to fight him, I think Shakur is that guy. And I don't think everybody's necessarily afraid of Shakur. It's not a fear factor when it comes to Shakur, because in reality, he also doesn't punch. He's not a puncher. Like, he can get you out the way, but he's not, like, he don't have, like, I would have sleepless nights fighting Tank, because honestly, he could literally knock you unconscious. I already told you he knocked the man blind and he was still awake, and he also could, his eyes was open. Like, I would be terrified to fight a person like that. Shakur, I'm not scared. Same thing like Floyd. I'm not afraid to fight Floyd. It's one of those, like, I just don't want to, because he'll just beat me. I don't want to just keep getting punched in the face and him possibly being a boring fight. And then Lomachenko is much smaller than Shakur. It's not a really good, favorable matchup for him. So I get why he wouldn't necessarily want that fight. What I think is going to happen next, I believe that he's going to fight the third title contender. I think there's a fight happening in a couple weeks for that vacant belt. Or it's either vacant or somebody defending the belt. I think he's going to take that challenge, and I think that he will fight that. And if he wins that fight, I could see him fighting Tank or Shakur. But I think he rather the Tank fight than the Shakur fight, because I personally believe Tank is more of a winnable fight just based off of styles.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, Lomachenko would rather fight Gervonta Davis, because I'm not saying Gervonta Davis doesn't have skill, of course not, but we all know Gervonta Davis from his power, more so his skill set, even though his skill set is elite.
Yeah, exactly.
So is Lomachenko's, though. So now we're taking out the skill set. Now we're offsetting that. Now we're talking about power versus the matrix, right? So I think in Lomachenko's mind, he says to himself, okay, if I fight a Tank, I know from a tactical standpoint, I got him beat. So I really just have to watch out for his power. Now, if I fight a Shakur Stevenson, I'm fighting a tactical guy more so even than I am myself. And I know as Lomachenko that my power is not going to overwhelm a Shakur Stevenson.
Yep.
So that is a way tougher fight for me than it is like, okay, I can outbox Gervonta Davis. And no one cares besides Gervonta Davis fans about my boxing and my performance as a Lomachenko guy, because I'm Lomachenko. Everybody knows I'm like a matrix kind of speedy guy. I've proven I can knock people out. And they should probably suspect that, I would try to take this route anyways. So, when it comes to fighting Tank, he just has to worry about power. Shakur, he has to worry about his own medicine, his own game.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going to happen next. Like you said, he's 36. There's vacant opportunities for him up and down, both weight classes. He can go junior lightweight, lightweight. Either way, he has some good fights if he wants them. If not, we know why.
Yeah, and last bit, I want to say this because Tank fans is like a cult following. These guys are they're annoying on social media, and I say this all the time, brother. I am literally from the same state as Tank. I want Tank to thrive. I don't think Tank sucks. I don't think he's bad. Anything. So make sure, and especially if Chris chopped this up into a small clip that y'all like to take a clip and act like it was the whole thing. Watch the video. Watch the whole show. See what we say. When I say that Tank, and when we say Tank is a easier option for Shakur, I'm not sure for Shakur, but for Loma, that's not saying that we think that he's going to beat Tank. It's not the same thing, because I personally still think Tank would win. However, we're just saying it's a more favorable matchup because low output. Then also the fact that Tank also gives up rounds because he just doesn't throw. And it's not just with people who we don't respect their power. He's just not that active at times. Lomachenko can easily steal rounds, especially with his pace and his accuracy and his movement. He can definitely steal rounds with just a few shots and then accumulate rounds and find ways to not get hit with those big shots to win a fight. It's very possible. So you can't sleep on Lomachenko. And if you do that, you just don't watch boxing, because this guy is elite, like elite at boxing. Okay? So, that's how we take it. That's what we want to see. But once again, shout out to Lomachenko, man. You are an absolute warrior, man. Thanks for showing that 36 ain't old at all. And just keep this whole thing plugging. And once again, we about to get this social media thing started up too. We haven't came up with a name yet, but please everybody, be on the lookout for our social media. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to our page. Make sure you like our page, comment on our page, but also go on our social media. We will be doing a lot of clips on there as well. Join in on the debate. I'm always commenting. Don't worry. All right, I don't back down. Josh don't back down. And we're going to be in there like swimwear, all right? Make sure you follow us on social media. Josh, you got anything to say before we head out?
Yeah, thanks for all the support now in the future. And yeah, to Showtime's point here, make sure you follow us on our soon-to-be new Instagram page. We're ready for the debates. And, thanks for even watching this clip here.
All right, man. Thank you, guys. Make sure y'all have a blessed week, and we will see you guys next time.